Hey there, it's JVL from the Bulwark here, breaking down Kamala Harris's first big rally in Milwaukee. She was at a high school field house, over 3,000 people packed in there, and it was really impressive. I want to break down what happened in the speech, what she said, and why it's important, and how this sort of points her into the future. So she starts out by giving Joe Biden his gold watch, talks about how good he is, and frames it very interestingly. Says that he accomplished more in one term than most presidents get done in 2 terms, which is a nice way of implicitly handing off why he's not running again without actually saying it. Makes it seem like he's already fulfilled his duty and is ready to pass the baton.
It has truly been one of the greatest honors of my life to serve as vice president to our President Joe Biden. Joe's legacy of accomplishment over his entire career and over the past 3.5 years is unmatched in modern history. In one term, think about it, in one term as president, he has already surpassed the legacy of most presidents who served 2 terms in office.
Then she does the prosecutor riff that she did so effectively in Wilmington at the Biden campaign headquarters a day ago. And this is, again, it's just good stuff. And you should expect to see this basically every time she speaks from now until November. Talked about how as attorney general and a prosecutor, she went after predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers. And then she says, I know Donald Trump's type. And she looks straight to camera. And there's this moment where she gets this look on her, and that thing is just gold. Absolute gold. Look at this. Look at what a star she is here.
So as Leah told you, before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
But then she moves off of Trump. And she makes it very clear that this is not really going to be a campaign where she tries to make Trump the referendum. She's going to run a really future-focused campaign. Talks about how what she wants to do is build an America where everyone can join a union, where everyone gets affordable health care, affordable child care, paid family leave. Everyone can retire with dignity. This is all very solid middle-class, working-class stuff.
We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. A future where no child has to grow up in poverty. Where every worker has the freedom to join a union. Where every person has affordable health care, affordable child care, and paid family leave.
And she's aimed like an arrow at the heart of it. This is not someone who's talking about big esoteric ideas about liberty or democracy and stuff like that. She says very explicitly, when our middle class is strong, America is strong.
Here's the thing we all here, Wisconsin, know. When our middle class is strong, America is strong.
And then she frames that in her forward-looking campaign against Trump. And she says Trump wants to take America backward. She talks about Project 2025. And it seems pretty clear now that the Harris campaign and Democrats are going to try to use Project 2025 just as the branding that they hang everything that people don't like about Trump underneath, so that Project 2025 becomes just a catch-all slogan. I wasn't sure this was going to work. I thought that this might be a process argument, but I think it is going to work. She says, can you believe they put that thing in writing? You got to look at her here. She's great with this.
But Donald Trump wants to take our country backward. He and his extreme Project 2025 agenda will weaken the middle class. Like, we know we got to take this seriously. Can you believe they put that thing in writing?
And then she uses this to hang about how they want to cut Social Security and Medicare and let insurance companies deny people with pre-existing conditions. This is not a process argument about civil servants and the bureaucracy and how they're going to change the executive branch. This is a very kitchen table attack on Project 2025, and I think it's very smart.
When you read it, you will see Donald Trump intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations and make working families foot the bill. They intend to end the Affordable Care Act and take us back then to a time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Remember what that was like? Children with asthma, women who survived breast cancer, grandparents with diabetes. America has tried these failed economic policies before, but we are not going back.
And she then frames the entire Trump agenda as going backwards. And she says, we are not going back. Ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom.
And I'll tell you why we're not going back. Because ours is a fight for the future.
And then she talks about how the shoulders on which we're all standing now are generations of Americans who led the fight for freedom, and that the baton is now in our hands. Again, everything here is about passing torch. It's about new. It's about youth and the future.
The shoulders on which we stand, generations of Americans before us led the fight for freedom. And now, Wisconsin, the baton is in our hands.
This is an incredibly effective way of suggesting to people it's time to turn the page on all the stuff that everybody hates. Have you been miserable for the last 8 years with all these crazy fights about vaccines and overturning elections and putting bleach into yourselves and stuff? Well, if you've hated that, and spoiler, everybody has hated that, she's here to take us all past that. That's a very powerful proposition. She then ends by asking, what kind of country do we want to live in? And here again, she's treading very lightly on the pro-democracy stuff. So if you're like a Bulwark stan who's been worried about Donald Trump's authoritarian attempt, she's sort of eliding all of that stuff and speaking in very accessible ways about it. And she says, what kind of country do we want to live in? A country of freedom, compassion, and the rule of law, or chaos, fear, and hate?
Do we want to live in a country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law, or a country of chaos, fear, and hate? And here's the beauty of this moment. We each have the power to answer that question. The power is with the people. We each have the power to answer that question. And in the next 105 days, then we have work to do. We have doors to knock on. We have phone calls to make. We have voters to register. And we have an election to win.
Again, this is just a very good frame for her, and it's very easily digestible. I think this is the making of a very effective stump speech. You're going to see a lot of this over the coming weeks. I think it is a very, very savvy and smart strategic positioning for Kamala Harris for her campaign. It strikes me as a positioning which gives her a very real chance to win. Before we go, one other thing. Kamala Harris sat down, and this is the other thing that she has that Trump doesn't. Take a look at this clip. Big sister general.
What they call attorney generals when they're attorneys general. they call them General. So
Yes, they call me General Harris.
General Harris.
And
so
she
when
hates
it was so perfect. She's General Harris. And so when she was elected Attorney General, she actually said, you realize you're going to have to start calling me General Harris. So my feeling is that when she's President of the United States,
stop it.
I will call her Miss President. But until then, you're just Kamala.
All right. Okay.
No, I'm Big Sister. Big Sister General.
I'm sorry, but that's star power. And that is that ineffable, oh, here's a person that you wouldn't mind hanging out with. We've got that now. Going up against the guy who wants to be a dictator, who says he wants to terminate parts of the Constitution, and who has this absolute effing weirdo of a vice presidential candidate who is, as a buddy of mine said on Twitter, J.D. Vance is the Ron DeSantis of Sarah Palin's. That's the contrast. That's the election. This is game on. We're going to see, I'm telling you right now, watch over the next week, you are going to see polling drop that shows Kamala Harris beating Donald Trump. It'll only be a couple points. It'll still be within the margin of error. But this is now a winnable race with a candidate whose skills on the stump are just in a different category than what we had before. Kamala Harris can win this thing. See you next time.